Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to our MSBS student panel. My name is Jared Raftery, and I am the Marketing and Communications Manager for the Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. Today, I'm going to be talking to two students who have either completed or are currently in our Master of Science in Biomedical Science program. So let's start with a couple introductions. Please share your name and fun fact about yourself.
Sure. Hi, I'm Samantha. I am currently a second-year PhD student at Mount Sinai, and I graduated from the MSBS program in 2023, so it's been a couple of years. A fun fact about myself, the thing that comes to mind is that 2 weeks ago, I did 5 national parks in 6 days, so hiking and camping is my thing, and yeah, that's what I did. I guess that's my fun fact.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing. That's awesome.
Hi, I'm Larian. I'm a second year MSBS student, currently in the middle of preparing to defend my thesis. My future aspirations are to go into medical school. And my fun fact is I document or check in whenever I go to a restaurant. So I have logged about 800 plus restaurants in New York City alone.
So in addition to questions about the program, you can also ask them about hiking and restaurants in New York City. So that's awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. And I'm excited to dive in and hear a little bit more about your experience. So my first question, I'll start with you, Sanutha, is why did you choose to study biomedical science, school of medicine specifically?
Sure. So I do not have a background in biomedical science. At least my undergraduate degree was in bioengineering. So I was very engineering focused. Didn't really like it as much during my undergrad, and I pivoted during some summers in like my junior year to just look at some potential like research opportunities over the summer, and I absolutely loved research. But given the dearth of research experience I had during my undergrad, when I was applying for my master's program, I wanted to pick a school that gave me the ability to like get that research experience as well, and just make me understand what research as a career would look like. So when I was doing my research, while I picked many schools and applied to many different schools, Mount Sinai being within the hospital system and being literally in the same building that you do research is also the same building that there are clinical patients coming in, just seemed like a very interesting atmosphere to do research in, and also the closest I could get to the real world implications of research. So I was like, this would be a good spot to start my research journey if that's where it was headed. So that was my decision behind picking Mount Sinai.
And you're still doing it,
Yeah.
right? Here in your PhD
Yes.
program, so that's excellent. Lauren, why don't you tell me about your experience and why you chose Mount Sinai?
I think sort of similar. I love the science, but I sort of, up to this point before this program, I wanted to see be surrounded in a community with Mount Sinai being a hospital. Just how my research could impact patients or hospital staff, physicians down the road. So choosing Mount Sinai, one being a hospital first, would allow me to collaborate with a lot of physicians, which I am fortunate enough to do in terms of my professional development, but also my research goals allow me to collaborate with physicians. But yeah, I think it's sort of a cool marriage of what does the hospital provide, what does the research provide, and how I can marry those two things together.
No, it's interesting to hear you both say that because that's something that comes up a lot with students is the health system being a major draw. So it's interesting that you mentioned that. So that's awesome. So my next question, Laren, is for you specifically. So since you're still in the program, what aspect of the Master of Science in Biomedical Science has been the most impactful for you so far? It's had the biggest influence on your journey.
I think the way I think of this program is, as I am aspiring to go into medical school, if there's something that comes to my mind that I want to do, or something I'm curious about, or say like, oh, this would be a great experience, I sort of just have to think about it, and there's some sort of opportunity here to do that. So for example, I want to network or collaborate with physicians, and I can do that because a lot of our lab collaborators are physicians. I want to network with scientists, and that's very easy just because of the nature of the research and the graduate program. And there's a whole bunch of volunteer opportunities, a lot of just ways to get involved within the program that really attracted me to this program and what I really love. Yeah.
Yeah, it really sounds like this program is really what you make it.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that really applies to your experience at Mount Sinai regardless of the program. So Nutha, would you say that now that you've been through the master's program and now in our doctoral program, would you say that's true?
No, absolutely. I think I definitely agree with the sentiment that Arian just shared as well. I think just the amount of opportunities that I was allowed to like explore during just the 2 years that I was at Sinai, whether it was teaching, volunteering, whether it was a different type of research, it was mentoring, just a range of opportunities that were available to me as a master's student kind of actually made it easier for me to make that decision of going into the doctoral program as well, because I was surrounded by people who had done the same. I was surrounded by people who did not do the same and like had like opinions about like how to go forward from there. So I think just being surrounded by a community that was so supportive and just wanted the best for you kind of helped me understand what I wanted to do at the end of my master's program and what I wanted to gain out of the master's program as well. So kind of definitely helped me understand my trajectory better.
That's excellent. Well, that really leads into my next question for you specifically is how do you feel that the MSBS program prepared you for your doctoral program?
Sure. So I think one of the first things that really stood out to me about the MSBS program was just how intense, but at the same time helpful the core classes were, especially as someone who is not from a biomedical science background, who didn't study as much the crux of biomedical research. It was definitely challenging, but at the same time something that like really drew me into the program as well, because I was now in the midst of like taking classes with doctoral students who are also doing the exact same thing. So it kind of gave me kind of almost like an insight into what that life would look like for sure. So it was for all intents and purposes, the MSBS program for me was like a mini PhD, just everything that a PhD student is required to do, but just in a shorter timeline, with a lot more guidance as well. So that kind of helped for sure. So I knew what I was signing up for when I started the doctoral program because of my experience through the master's program as well. Also really helped that there were great academic advisors and the deans of the program that were able to like just tell me what I should expect and how I can, what are the regions of within my CV that I need to like improve on, what are things that would make me an attractive applicant. So just those like insights into what is expected of me was really helpful because it didn't feel like I was being thrown on the deep end of things, and it just made it easier for me to like assimilate into the PhD doctoral program community as well.
That's really great to hear because we always say, being in our MSBS program does help with getting into a doctoral program, but we can't guarantee it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to get yourself there. However, if you're in the program and you're taking advantage of these resources, meeting mentors and spending time with them, and again, looking at all the things that we have available to you and utilizing them, that will help your chances. So that's really great to hear that that worked out for you and that was your experience. So this is for both of you, but we'll start with Larian. What advice would you give to students that are seeking to get accepted into a biomedical science program?
Great question. I think, at least speaking for myself, when I was looking into this program and when I started this program, I knew a large component was research. But I think at the time I wasn't really sure what research I wanted to do. I had a little bit of research experience, but I wasn't quite sure what Sinai had to offer just then. But I think a part of the application process was look at the researchers, find your top 5, see what they're researching, and see if that's something you'd be interested in. And of course, now I joined a lab that wasn't any of those top 5, but at the very least, it gave me an idea of what's available, what could I be interested in. And once I came here and started doing my lab rotations, I already sort of had an idea of like, oh, this could be very interesting to me. So I would say do a little bit of like a check on what resources are here, especially if you're interested in lab research, take a look at who the PIs are and see if you could be interested in that research.
That's awesome. Could you tell me what lab you're in now and the work that you're doing in that lab?
Sure.
The audience would love to hear that.
Sure, yeah. So I am with, my PI is Dr. Wujin Han. We are part of the orthopedic research laboratories. And our lab in particular is a bioengineering lab. So part of the lab works on hydrogel scaffolds, but my particular project is using lipid nanoparticles as therapeutic for muscle regeneration.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you both had an interest in engineering because we actually have a new PhD program in health sciences engineering, which is with the Rensselaer Polytech Institute. So if you are interested in that as well, take a look into that program also. And Sanu, the same question for you. What advice would you give to students, and maybe talk about for a doctoral program, like for a higher level? Any advice that you give to students?
Sure. As I mentioned before, I barely had any research experiences before I applied to the master's program. So I think what worked in my favor was just spinning the narrative of talking about how, given my lack of research experience, Mount Sinai would be the perfect fit, given that it would give me a heads up on everyone else who would potentially be applying to a doctoral program to get that research experience, so that I would make the best off of this opportunity. And also I would take it a step above what Larian said, and not just do your homework on who the researchers are at Sinai and who you would want to work with, but also maybe reach out to them, just shoot them an email. That's what I did, and just talk to them, and they're super, super helpful. So they would be happy to talk to you, schedule a Zoom call or whatever it takes. And they will give you a sense of what their research is and what their lab environment will look like and what you could get out of it as well. So that really helped. And it also helped me kind of make that connections even before I came into Sinai. So I kind of knew some of the faces before I started my first day here, which also definitely helped.
Yeah. And something I just thought of as we're speaking, it sounds like mentorship has been really impactful for both of you in your programs. So did you find that you had to seek out mentors? What was one assigned to you? How does that process work at Sinai? Larry, maybe you can speak to that, how you ended up finding a mentor.
Sure. I think I will say there's a little bit of effort on your part or my part in trying to find a mentor, but I think Sinai is very easy about doing the best about pairing you with a mentor that fits with you. I would say I don't think I tried too hard. I think fortunately everyone that I reached out to was really great. Everyone provided great feedback. The hardest part was really on my end when I had to choose which mentor, because everyone was just so great. Yeah.
It's a great problem to have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Sanu, the same question for you. Did you feel like you had to seek out a mentor, or how did that process go for you?
So I think, I don't know if I just got lucky, but the first PI that I spoke to is the PI that I'm working with right now. I did my master's and currently my doctoral studies as well. I completely went off her vibes, and she gave me just great vibes. So she just seemed like the mentor who would be handholdy in the sense that would help me learn new techniques that I definitely didn't have the experience in, but also would just be supportive through the learning curve process that I'm sure a lot of applicants will also have to go through. So it definitely was easier for me to get mentors, but beyond just my lab environment and my research environment, even the course directors that I took classes with were so approachable. They definitely allowed space for you to just come up to them and talk to them and ask them any questions you want to. And especially if you are in Sinai and if you have the Sinai email address and you shoot anyone in Sinai an email, they will respond. So it gets really easy to kind of break that barrier of communicating with these really important folks in science and research. So I think just how approachable everyone was and how committed everyone is in your development, just being a part of Sinai would definitely be helpful.
Absolutely. We actually have a question from the audience that I'd like to add in here, which is, can you elaborate on how you got into your research track? So Larry, we'll start with you.
Sure. I guess part of it was knowing what my prior research was. So my prior research sort of introduced me to particular thought process of I know I'm interested in this particular thing. I know that I'm not interested in these particular things, but I also know that I developed skills from my prior research experience. So when I went to go speak with PIs, rotate in labs, I had an honest conversation with everyone all of the potential mentors and the PIs, and I said, like, hey, this is my prior experience. This is why I was drawn to your lab in particular, because I think the mindset is very similar. But I also want to develop new skills that I didn't have from my prior experience. So fortunate enough meeting with Dr. Khan, I did exactly that. I said, like, hey, I want to develop microsurgical skills. I want to be able to collaborate with physicians. And he was like, yeah, we can do that. We have the ability to connect you with these people, and we have the ability to train you in the procedures that you want to learn. So yeah, and I was like, that's great. That's perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's exactly, I think, what any student wants to hear is that you can go get the help you need, get connected to the right resources, and actually do the work that you need to do.
Yes.
So Sunita, same question. Can you tell me so for our PhD program, you choose a multidisciplinary training area for the biomedical sciences program. So you can tell me what MTA you're in and a little bit about how you found your MTA, which track you want to be on.
Sure. So I'm in the neuroscience MTA, and my lab specifically is a psychiatry lab that studies brain-body responses to stress. The way I got into this research specifically was the little bit of research that I had in undergrad was one looking at like neural stem cells, and the other was in a gut lab. So the way I wanted to go about it is because I couldn't pick one or the other, I wanted to find a lab that would potentially like be able to accommodate both in a sense, both a little bit of like physiology as well as a little bit of like psychiatry and neuroscience as well. And this was like the perfect fit for that because that's exactly what my lab does is look at like brain, body, physiological and psychiatric responses to stress. So that's how I got into the research that I'm currently doing as well. But also just going off of like what I just mentioned before, it also really helped that my mentor was so nice with just accommodating me. I was her first graduate student because she also had just started her lab when she came in. So being her first grad student, a lot of the techniques that I learned in lab currently were taught to me by her. Right? So that also really helped just like get me that leg up and building that relationship with my mentor as well.
And how amazing that she gets to see your entire journey, right? Like helping you through your master's program and now your doctoral program. That's great. We have another question from the audience, which is how much time per week do you spend on labs versus on class each year? So Sunita, I'll start with you this time.
Sounds good. So I think when I was doing my master's program, the first year is very course intensive for sure, because a lot of your core classes are something that you will be taking in your first year. So I would say I spent about 3 to 4 hours per day in lab. So that would amount to about like 20 hours a week. And that's also what's recommended by the program as well, that you don't spend more than 20 hours because you have a very intensive core requirement as well. You have assignments and quizzes and exams to study for. So I did spend a good like 60 to 70% of my time either in class or studying post-class, and maybe spend about 20-ish hours doing like actual research. That kind of switched gears completely the end of first year. So the summer going into like second year is when it like completely ramped towards research, where I think at least all of summer purely only did research because I wasn't taking any classes. And then fall of my second year, it was probably about 30 to 40 hours in lab and maybe just a couple of hours taking elective classes that don't have as much like requirements. So I would say it kind of gears up towards research in your second year, more so in the first year.
That's excellent. And Lauren, does that ring true for you in your experience as well?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think the way I scheduled my classes also left for a lot of flexibility. So the way I scheduled my classes, I really wanted to focus a lot of time in my second year on the research. So in my first year, in the beginning of my second year, I took the classes to try and get through the credit requirements or the unit requirements. So now, as I'm coming to the end of the program, it's really dedicated to doing research, working on my thesis. Yeah.
Another question from the audience: is it possible to transfer from the master's program to the PhD program within the first year, or is it rare? I'm not sure if either of you have the insight on that.
I actually
Oh, you do?
So that was something like right after my first year, I knew that a PhD is what I wanted to do next. So I did consider transferring immediately out of my first year into the PhD program, but I was strongly suggested not to, just because that second year of research experience you get is so important to give you that boost on your like research hours that you record, as well as the kind of publications you can get out of your work, because that's where you're doing the most amount of research anyway. It definitely helped me to have that added on to my doctoral like PhD program application. If I just gone straight off of like first year for sure. And if you do already have a lot of research experiences, and usually when you apply for your master's program as well, they would recommend you to like also apply for the PhD program, or vice versa. If you're applying for a PhD program and they don't see a lot of research experience, they recommend you do a master's or gain more research experience before you apply. I have only heard of like a couple students who were able to immediately transfer from the master's to the PhD program right out of first year, at least from like talking to some of the deans when I was planning to do the same. It is super rare, mostly because I think people come into the master's program wanting more research experience, and 1 year is not sufficient to gain that, especially with your classes. So I waited the full 2 years to be done with my program before applying for my PhD.
Yeah, that makes sense. I hadn't heard of many examples of that, so that's a great question. We have another audience question. I love this. What is one resource or opportunity at Sinai that you think sometimes gets overlooked but has made a big difference for you? Larry, do you have any ideas about that?
Ooh,
It's overlooked, because we have a lot of resources here at Sinai.
Overlooked. I don't know if it's particularly overlooked, just because I think Mount Sinai does a pretty good job at sharing what resources it has. I mean, we get a bunch of emails on like, oh, this resource is available, and then it's on you to like read through the emails. But I think some of the resources that I'll shout out are like mentorship resources. So if you want your volunteer hours or volunteer experiences and you want to mentor like high school students, or if you want to get involved with the student-run health clinic, that's also available. But yeah, I guess Sinai does a pretty good job at advertising what's available. Yeah.
And that's EHUB, right?
Yeah, EHUB.
And can you share for the audience just what the acronym stands for? It's
East Harlem Health
Outreach.
Outreach program. Yeah, that's right. I think it's a great opportunity to mingle with physicians, mingle with medical students, and it's a great program that tries to acknowledge that there are social determinants of health that affect people in the East Harlem community, and try to address those issues by providing care to those patients.
I always felt like that was a really impactful program, just because it serves the local community that Mount Sinai is part of. It was awesome. Another audience question: do students in the master's program take classes with the PhD and MD students? And are you graded the same as those students? So Sanuka can speak to that, because she recalls that experience.
Sure.
I spoke to that previously.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, I did take classes with the PhD students when I was taking my core classes. Some of my electives were also taken with PhD students, so it depends completely on what electives you choose. I also took some with med students as well. So it was a mixed bag, but definitely my core classes was something I took with PhD students. And the rigor with which they like teach you the course, as well as like assess your performance within the course as well, is something that definitely is on par with PhD students. So there is no different grading criteria for like a master's student versus a PhD student, which is why I say the core classes are very intense. And that's a lot of why your first year is going to be taken away by like core requirements. Not that it's a bad thing, because I think it definitely helped prepare me for the amount of information that is required to like excel with research as well. So I did take classes with PhD students. I think it definitely gave me a leg up, because when I got into the PhD program and started my PhD program, Sinai transferred my credits for the core classes, which meant that I did not have to take them again, which made my first year a breeze within the PhD program, which definitely helped. Yeah.
And I'm sure people would really appreciate that extra time as well, especially with such a rigorous schedule. We have another audience question. I love an active and engaged audience. The most rewarding experience at Mount Sinai, what is it? Okay, yeah, that's just the way that question was phrased. Larry, why don't we start with you?
I think right now, as I'm coming to the end of the program and preparing to defend my thesis, I'm at a position where I can look back at my experience over the past 2 years and what I've been able to accomplish. And I think, I was fortunate enough to find a really great mentor who believes in me, who we've worked on a project from the very beginning of conceptualization of that project. And that project has taken me to being able to present it at different symposiums and conferences, poster presentations, podium talks. Just last month, I was able to go to Chicago to give a talk on my research at a national conference. So now I can look back and like, wow, I did all of that stuff. That's really cool. And yeah, I think just now, because I'm finishing my thesis, I can look back on that and say, yeah, I did a lot in 2 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Sure. So I think one of the biggest or the most impactful experience for me through my journey at Mount Sinai, beyond just my research, the community I've built, and everything else, was this like one particular club that I joined at Sinai, which was shout out to like ST3, which is a story time teen talk, that I also got to be the student leader for in my second year in the master's program. It's this really cool program where like students, both med students, masters, as well as like PhD students, get to go to the pediatric psychiatry ward out in like Mount Sinai Hospital and just spend an hour, 2 hours just playing with the kids there, just making them feel normal, have conversations that are outside of like a psychiatrist's office, make them feel like included within like just a normal childhood space. So playing Jenga with them or playing Scrabble with them for like an hour and a half. It also, given that I do psychiatric research, it was great to actually see the impact my research could potentially make at some point, hopefully in the future, or even the reason why I got into research in the first place. And just the face time I was able to get with potential people that I can hopefully help in the future, and just able to spend time with them was just something that I was so sure was so unique to Mount Sinai, and it left like such a lasting impact on me as well. So yeah, I think that was the most impactful moment for me in Mount Sinai for sure.
Well, I just want to say on behalf of the institution, we're very lucky to have two very engaged students such as you. So I'm really happy to hear that you guys have taken a lot of advantage of all the resources that we offer. So, all right, I just have one last quick question, then we'll wrap it up for you. What are your career aspirations upon completing the program? So, Larian, I know that you are interested in going to medical school. Are you considering applying to the Icahn School of Medicine?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Also, we'd love to hear that. And I'm sure you'll look at some other options as well, but that'd be really exciting. And Samantha, what are you thinking for after you complete your doctoral program?
Sure. So I am still unsure. I love research, and I think I came into the PhD program loving research, but still not sure of whether I wanted to like stay within academia or switch gears, go to industry, and I still don't know. But I guess I have another 2 to 3 years to figure that out. So I'm still taking my time figuring out whether I want to go down the research academia path or research and industry path, and I guess I'll find out.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure your remaining time in the program will help you inform that decisions. All right, everybody, that's all the time that we have today. Larry and Samantha, thank you so much for your time and for speaking with us about your experience in the program.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, and have a nice afternoon.